My name is Dan Lawrence. I'm a human performance coach with over 20 years experience working with NFL Super Bowl winners, undisputed boxing champions, numerous Premier League footballers, and some of the biggest CEOs on the planet. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the body behind the business. A question I ask every executive when they come to work with me. I'd love you to ask this same question to yourself today. Are you thriving or are you merely surviving? Over the past 5 years, we've seen a major shift in the high-level CEOs of how they're now embodying a life of health and performance. The likes of Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and even in the movie space, Kevin Hart, Dwayne Johnson, they all now connect the dots between being optimized and embodying a life of health and performance and driving their business forward and being able to show up consistently each and every day. So let's take a look at an individual who is merely just trying to get from one day to the next, who is simply surviving. They likely aren't sleeping well. They have high levels of stress that they simply can't control. And then for their outlet, they're likely using alcohol as they feel like they deserve it. They've been working really hard. I need this. This is my release. We've heard it all too often. These three are all very much interlinked. If you're having high levels of alcohol, you're likely not sleeping well. And then when you're not sleeping well, your hormones are all over the place, and then you're highly stressed. So you can see how these are all brought together. That will then lead to weight gain and, of course, low energy. How can you show up with high energy each and every day if you're not sleeping well, you're not eating well? And because of this, you become very reactive. You might have one good day, 2 bad days. You're snapping at people. Your team don't know whether to say anything because they don't know the reaction they're going to get. You're very inconsistent with your mood and energy. We want to have this stabilization of consistency. They know that when you're going to show up in the boardroom, the office, or wherever your domain is, they know what they're going to get. Instead of that, it's 1 day on, 2 days off, and they just don't know what individual is going to show up on that specific day. And of course, all of this leads to burnout. You know that you can work hard and you know that you can have poor sleep for a short period of time. Of course you can. It's never going to be perfect. But can you do that for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, a year? Of course you can't. We know that that's not a long-term sustainable plan. And all of this leads to very much a sedentary lifestyle. The likelihood of you wanting to get up and go to the gym is very low because you're underfueled, you haven't slept well, you've got high levels of stress, your time management and structure to your days is likely poor. And this will, of course, negatively impact your focus, your productivity, your emotional control, as we spoke about, being quite snappy and reactive to your staff and team members. And of course, it's going to negatively impact your cognition, mental sharpness, and your decision making. You won't make the right decisions if you are underfueled, have poor sleep, have been making suboptimal choices around alcohol. So all of this is someone who is merely surviving and trying to get through the day. Now let's look at an individual who is thriving. Those individuals are very structured in their days. They're not reactive. They know the day prior exactly what meetings they've got, when they're training, when they're seeing their family. They have a clear structure and flow to their day. But in the same breath, they're also very aware that they can get thrown a curveball. In life and business, we know that happens on a day-to-day basis. But these individuals, because they're sleeping well, because they're eating the right foods, and because they have really good emotional control, they can take that and keep moving forwards and just adapt their plan accordingly. But it doesn't mean that they just show up on the day and they don't know what meetings they've got, they don't know when they're training, they don't know when they're eating, they don't know when they're seeing their family. They have all of those big rocks in place so that when they're thrown a curveball, they know exactly how to deal with it. They likely are lean and they are very disciplined. And when I say lean, to be clear, I'm not referring to someone who's walking around at sub 10% body fat. Just someone who places high value on their training, nutrition, recovery, and mindset. And you can evidently see it in the energy they bring every single day. They're strong in thought and physical strength as well. I'll talk about that shortly. They have clarity of thoughts. They're really important to make the right decisions. They bring the same energy, high energy, each and every day. There's no peaks and troughs like someone who is merely surviving, who may have a good day, but then they'll have 3 bad days, and then they have to work hard to pick themselves up again. This energy is consistent. They likely train regularly. Someone who trains shows discipline, structure, and how they place their priorities and what they place their priorities on. They recover properly. They realize that sleep and recovery is key to cognition and key to keeping their energy high. They have control around their emotions and they're intentional with their actions. The individual who is thriving has very clear focus. They're resilient to those setbacks and curveballs that they might get thrown. They have high outputs each and every day. And these individuals can lead their team for a prolonged period of time. And that's the key part. Someone who is thriving can be consistent, not for a year, not for 3 years, but for a sustained period of time. They can keep that level of consistency and high energy to reach their goals. Now let's go a step further. Now this is how you feel, but now let's have a look at how others may perceive you. People respond differently to energy, posture, confidence, and presence. We've all seen it. If someone walks into the boardroom with their shoulders back in a fitted shirt, they command the room before they've even spoken. Equally, the other side of that, if someone is overweight, someone's shirt's unbuttoned, they just don't look the part and their shoulders are round, their posture's poor, you can see the energy they're going to give off is not going to be great. I don't mean to judge, but we all do. Let's be realists here. So let's take a look at that individual. Their confidence, their presence, their standards, their discipline, their self-respect and energy is all very high. A key part of that is the discipline. How you do anything is how you do everything. I truly believe in that saying. Do you show up on time or are you tardy? What do you wear? How do you posture? How do you communicate? Is your energy level high? Do you treat people with respect? Do you listen, absorb, and then give your input? Or do you just try and talk over people and are very reactive and inconsistent in your emotions? Key traits of someone who is merely surviving. So this is really important because I truly believe, as I say, how you do anything is how you do everything. This now leads to better leadership, better decision-making, better communication. You build strong, solidified relationships, and you can execute each and every day. For me, health equals performance. We've all seen it. If you sleep well, if you eat well, if you show up each day, if you have high energy, you take care of your health, which means you perform better. So this here is the bucket analogy. If you feel like that bucket is starting to overflow, which we all have it at times, even if you are someone who is thriving, that doesn't mean you just don't get stressed. That doesn't mean you don't have a bad day. Of course you do. But the key trait, as Tim Grover says, is never miss twice. It means you can reset right away and get back on track. The individuals who are surviving, they don't have a track in the first place because they're way off it. And they have to use ergogenic aids, alcohol, caffeine, everything else to get them through the day. So looking back at the bucket analogy, we want to keep this from overflowing. This would be stress, this would be allostatic load that all goes into the same bucket. How do we do that? Well, the individual who is thriving, the individual who takes care of their health, who sleeps well and eats well, will ensure that this bucket does not overflow. The individual who is surviving, we know that that's going to overflow, and that's when things break down. So the key component here is when you have your training, your nutrition, your recovery, and your mindset in order, and you show up each and every day, you can control that bucket from overflowing. So hopefully this video has been of value. And if you do have some of these traits, if you may have some of these traits, the key is to try and move and shift these into an individual who is thriving. And you can do this. Take care of the 4 pillars that I just mentioned. Take care of your training, nail your nutrition, master your recovery with sleep being the #1 recovery tool. And of course, focus on your mindset each and every day to keep moving forwards. I hope you like this video on the body behind the business. Hopefully now you're going to be thriving on a day-to-day basis. If you did like this video, please like, subscribe, and share. I look forward to seeing you on the next high performance video.